Palm, everyone's coming to me saying, how can I make more money?
That everyone in construction wants to make more money. I think it's the standard, like everyone wants to build that profitability up. They want to increase that turnover. What we do at the front end, estimating, the QS pre-contract stuff, that's how you make more money. You got to make sure your estimating is right. You get that piece wrong, it's going to pain you throughout. So, although we see people that don't want to invest in the estimating process, they say, I'll do it myself, or I found someone cheaper to do it. Cheaper doesn't always mean better. And if you've got a good estimating team on your side, whether they're in-house or whether they're external, they will be worth their weight in gold every day of the week. So, if you want to make money, it has to start at them fundamentals.
I think you need to be putting the time in at the front end and the money in at the front end to make sure everything else falls into place.
Yeah, well, our most successful clients are the ones that come to us and say, I want to get this estimate done. We do it for them. They review it. They speak to us about it. We tweak things and then they send it out because they're comfortable with it. Ultimately, they know where their subcontractors are in terms of price. They know what they're buying materials at. And although they provide us that information, commercially, when you've got an astute contractor that understands the market, they're going to look at that pricing document and go, actually, you know what? I'm going to tweak this. I'm going to move that. I'm going to move this. And they'll tweak the dials to get it to exactly where they need it to be from a point that they can then sell it to a client. They're the ones that win the work. They're the ones that make more profit. It's because they're putting the time in at that front end. Granted, you're not going to win everything. You're never going to. But if you want to make serious money in the construction industry, the first step is getting that estimating piece right and ensuring that you're in a position where you know what your numbers are. Even if you have an estimator sat next to you, if I run a construction company and you're sat next to me, just because you're the estimating team, if I'm the MD, it doesn't mean that I shouldn't question you on the numbers, because I also know enough about construction to know where that tender needs to be pitched. You should be questioning your in-house estimating team just as much as you're checking in on an external one. It's communication piece. You've got to get it right. That estimating piece, you get that wrong, you ain't going to make any money. You might fail.
Even the communication between, like you're saying, the contractor and the estimator is so key, because things are changing, things always change, rates change, subcontractors change their rates, they might not have the same team on, or their materials might have gone up. And even between the contractor and anything they sub out, they need to be negotiating their prices, they need to be negotiating their rates.
100%. It's a long-term relationship, isn't it? You get to know your estimator, you get to know the people that you're working with, they get to know you, they get to understand your business, your labor rates, where you like things priced higher, where you like things priced lower, which one of your subbies price higher, which one of your subbies price lower. They get to know you. It's a relationship of trust, because you get that bit wrong and it's going to be disastrous. So you want to make more money in construction, you've got to put some more resource into your estimating department. Not just in getting the estimating right, getting more estimates out there, getting more tenders out there. If you want to make more money and you want to grow, you want to increase your turnover, you have to have more estimates and tenders out there, so you're having more conversations so you can bring that money in. So that's the first bit. And after that, it's getting that management piece in place. It's every bit. Once you've done the estimate, what's the next thing you should be doing? You should get in a materials list.
Exactly, yeah. You need to be getting your right documents in place, materials list, how's that ready? Have your program of works ready. You need to be making sure you're sticking on track, making sure that you're hitting your contract deadline as well. Again, if not, if you're overrunning or you miss your order deadline for some of your materials, all of these things are going to be eating into your profit, eating into your time frame, and you don't want to be at the back end of that. Again, even like you're saying, making sure you're having as many tenders come in as you can that you're in the run with, networking yourself, being out there, being available, speaking to architects. What projects have you got going on at the moment? As long as you're in the running for these projects and you're submitting your estimates, you can then have more projects on the go and therefore more business to then work on improving your output.
Look, the amount of people I hear, they don't want to spend a few £100 or a few £1,000 on getting a program done. You're 32 weeks. Yeah, you know your program's 32 weeks. That moves to 34 weeks. The stuff that's going to shift with it, the project management, all your prelims, site offices, site toilets, welfare, everything, all that slips by 4 weeks. You're spending more money. You're spending more money. That's coming off your bottom line. standard. And people don't want to then spend a little bit of money just getting that program right to ensure that you can make money from that document. You look at that document and you go, right, that's a program. I know what my key milestones I need to hit. And if we slip behind, I can look at what strategy we use to bring it back forward.
We're back on track.
People are happy for programs to slip, but program slippage and program creep is actually what loses people money, and it's going to lose you money. You just look at company resource. If you're running a construction company, it might even be a small construction company. You might be a one-man band doing a 12-week project. Well, that slips to 14 weeks. That's 2 extra weeks of management, your time that you need to use to recover that 2 weeks. It's costing you time. Your time is money. And by making sure you spend or invest a little bit of money in a program, that helps you. Materials list. Again, getting an accurate materials list done at the front end, negotiating all their materials before you even start on site. That's the key to making money. You know, you've got a good estimate document there. You do a materials list, and then you look at it and you go, right, I want to send this out to 3 to 5 material suppliers. I'm going to look at the most efficient places to buy, and I'm going to go and do a good negotiation. I want to have that as a list to work from. You're not just then buying willy-nilly. People get caught out on buying a box of nails at double the price, buying this at double the price. And it might only seem like 20 quid or 25 quid. You do that 100 times a year, it's a lot of money. It's all profit. People want to make money, but they forget to look at the small things, the fundamentals, the key critical bits. Your estimating, your buying, your program, they're key. You get them wrong, you won't make no money.
Even tying in with your program, keeping track of your cash flow of what's actually coming into the business is highly important. It's all well and good seeing what's not coming in or what's going out, but you need to be keeping track of spending, keeping track of what you're paying labourers, to make sure everything's running on track, and tying that in with the program, something like a cash flow, is going to help you when you're invoicing the client, when you're doing valuations. Things like this, you need to understand what's coming into the business and what's making you money, so you don't get caught out with anything.
Yeah, and then, tying into a cash flow, you got the contract. Again, the amount of people that decide they're not going to use a contract. Like, that's a fundamental document. I wouldn't do anything without a contract. Even if you buy a phone contract, they make you sign a 50-page T's and C's for $4.99 a month. But yet people are willing to do hundreds of £1,000s worth of work, or in some cases, millions and millions of pounds worth of work without a construction contract. That's crazy. The contract will stipulate the payment dates. You want to make sure the payment dates are being abided by for your own cash flow purposes, and so the client knows when they're going to pay. Because if your cash flow is off, it's going to cause you problems. If your cash flow is off, you might incur interest fees. You incur interest fees, that's coming off your bottom line. That's less profit. There's all these little fundamental things you've got to get right if you want to make more profit. It's simple. People are always crying for more profit. We hear it all the time. What can I do? How do I make more profit? Well, are you doing this? No. Have you got a program? No. Have you done a materials list? No. How are you doing your buying? Well, we just call the merchant and we just buy stuff. Well, how do you know that you're buying right? How do you know that you're getting the plasterboard at the rates you should be, or the blockwork at the rates you should be, or the best rates you can be? Because it might not seem like a lot of money, but when you're doing £1 million worth of buying a year, which is small numbers, that's small construction companies. 1 or 2% makes a big difference. That's all coming off your bottom line.
And I think, like you said, at the front end, people aren't willing, I don't want to put £500 for a materials list, or I don't want to pay for a program. But you're seeing this and threefold at the back end of what you're saving and what issues you're preventing just from getting the documents in place and having the true understanding of the project scope, what costs are, negotiating, everything's all adding up. And at the end of the project, you can see your final figures and go, okay, brilliant. I'm glad that I've had that done. I'm glad that I've done this and put this extra time and money in at the front end, and I've seen the results at the back end.
Well, a lot of people see it as a cost. It's just an investment. It's an investment to keep things on track. And the cost of not keeping things on track is loss of profit. In some cases, no profit. In other cases, making a loss. Ultimately, you have to invest in good project management, making sure your documents are right. That costs money, but ultimately that also saves you money. It saves you time. If you're serious about running a successful construction business that ultimately makes a profit, You've got to invest in these things. You've got to invest in these systems and processes and these this piece of documentation to ensure that you continue to make the profit that needs to be made, because there's always room to find money. You know, you don't need, everyone's always looking for increase in turnover.
Yeah.
You need to be looking at how you become more efficient. How do I make my estimating team better? How do I find more estimates to do? How do I make sure I'm buying better? How do I make sure my cash flow is good? How do I make sure my project management's better? All these things, you get them right, and you might have a marginal 2% gain on that, a 3% gain on that, a 2% gain on that, a 1% gain on that. All of a sudden, you found another 10%.
Yeah.
You know, and you've gone from making, you know, you might be working on a 5-10% margin. All of a sudden, you're on 20% margin. And actually, you haven't moved your pricing.
Yeah.
You haven't moved anything.
You're just being more efficient.
You're just being more efficient.
And with efficiency comes growth as well. So taking time away and putting it elsewhere might open up some more space and availability to take a whole nother project on, in which then you've got a whole nother avenue of profit coming in, and more space to then grow your business, take on more work, and then continue to grow the whole business as a whole, as well as your profit.
Yeah, absolutely.